we're here to tell you something.
You can become extraordinary.
We've filmed some of the most inspirational people on the planet to understand what it really takes to succeed. In Becoming Extraordinary, we'll explore the skills, knowledge, attitudes, and relationships to help you to realize your potential.
Because greatness isn't born, it's learned. So, who can you become?
In this episode, we'll meet the Magician, a globally renowned street entertainer, and the Captain, a British field hockey gold medalist who led the England and Great Britain women's team to the very top of the game.
Hello and welcome to Becoming Extraordinary. In this series, we're going to be taking a deep dive into some of the experiences and stories of some of the most successful people on the earth, and hopefully unearth some skills that can help you realize your potential.
In this episode, we'll be hearing about the magician Stephen Frayne, who you might know better as Dynamo, as well as hearing about the Team GB hockey legend, Kate Richardson-Walsh.
Ooh, but before we get into Kate's story, let's have a look and see some of the skills that gave Dynamo his magic touch. Okay, what do we know about Stephen?
Well, Stephen was named Dynamo whilst performing at Houdini's centenary celebration in New York, and the name just stuck.
Dynamo was promoted to Associate of the Magic Circle in 2012.
Stephen has walked on water across the River Thames outside the Houses of Parliament.
Dynamo's live performances have been some of the biggest in history.
Dynamo battles with Crohn's disease and autoimmune disorder.
I think we should have a look at his film.
I think so too.
For me, magic's an emotion that you bring out in someone, and we've all got it inside us when we witness something that's inexplicable, that completely blows our mind and kind of makes us change our view on the world. There's a lot of people who've watched my TV shows over the years, and for them it's like I've had like overnight success. But for me, it's been like 25 years of just working at this, and you know, that's a long night, 25 years. And there hasn't been like one defining moment. I felt it's been lots of small baby steps and the culmination of hard work and not taking no for an answer. If you think of magicians, I think of like places like Las Vegas, or even maybe like New York on Broadway. But Bradford, at the time, was a very deprived city. My mum had me when she was about 16, and my father went to jail when I was 4. It was a bit of a wrong one. Didn't really see or hear from him until I was 19 years old. Going to the school that I went to, growing up in that area, I realised quite early on that there was quite a lot of racist people, which I think also played into the fact of why I was getting picked on every day. And there wasn't many people of my ethnic background at the school to really kind of, you know, to defend me or to hang out with. I was definitely a misunderstood child. I seemed to find myself being interested and intrigued by all the things that none of my friends or none of my family would really understand or cared about. I came across magic from an early age. My grandpa showed me magic when I was about 11 years old, and I was fascinated by it, and then I ended up joining the circus. I know that sounds like a really far-fetched thing, you know, the kid that joined the circus, but I really did.
You know, it's important to realise that this wasn't an overnight success for Dynamo. It was years of practice. I mean, he would be throwing cards 6 to 8 hours in his room, just practicing.
Just to make sure he threw the cards in the right way. Like, it just feels like something that you'd be bored doing, but if that's your passion, and you're like, I want to get this right to make my shows perfect, 17 years, 25 years, eventually got his break.
I mean, he had a really hard childhood. His mum had him when she was 16. His dad went to prison when he was 4. And then he met his dad about 19, but his dad was never really in his life because his grandparents raised him. He didn't have an easy starting point, did he?
No. And then as a kid, I mean, because of all that situation, he's going through rough family life, but grew up on a council estate, was bullied relentlessly, and the only thing he could do as a kid that like would get him to focus and not think about any of that was magic. Just doing magic in his room, inspired by his grandparents. Like, I don't know, it's such a nice story. Most people 18 is like the cultural age that you have to like make that step to be an adult. But I feel like with his childhood, at 14, he had to make that decision. He was like, school isn't necessarily for me, I'm going to join the circus.
Yeah.
Like, what a big decision to make as a kid, to find his people.
I think it's really important to find people that have the same passion as you, like that have the same interests as you, because it excites you in that thing and it makes how you're feeling feel less strange. So if I'm a musician and I make more guitar friends or more drumming friends, and they're all encouraging me to keep going and to keep practicing, keep persevering, it's a good environment to be in.
I remember going back home, you know, to where I lived, and you know, when I go to school and stuff, everyone would just laugh at me and mock me, and say, you know, what, this is stupid. So I ended up becoming, I guess, quite introverted in my school life. My nan and grandpa, they really did look after me, and you know, my mum did her best at the time, obviously, but she was really young. She was a child herself, so it was kind of my grandparents, if I'm honest, who did raise me. My grandpa was the father figure that I never had in my life, and you know, thankfully, everything he passed on to me, somehow I've managed to make it into a career. When I perform, I do find myself saying things that when my grandpa used to say to me as a kid, I was like, what are you talking about, you old man? Shut up. Like, but everything he said, I realise now, he was like the wisest man I've ever met. Trying things and not being disheartened if you get it wrong. My grandpa used to try lots of things and get it wrong, and boy, my nana would tell him how bad he got it wrong. But it never used to stop him, it never disheartened him, he'd always stick with things till the end. And I think that's the biggest thing you need to make it in any industry, is you need to have patience and the determination to never give up, no matter what gets thrown in your way. If an obstacle gets thrown at you, you've got to go through that obstacle or find a way to go over it. Don't let the obstacle stop you.
He spoke about patience. Like, he is committed to being the best, but he's also aware of patience. It takes time, and that's okay. It takes practice, and that's okay. You're not gonna get there tomorrow, but as long as you have that willingness to improve, and you know, it will show itself. He's now doing performances that are the best talked about in history. I mean, that's a really big deal.
Yeah, it wasn't like as soon as he got out of the circus or as soon as he turned like 20, he's made it.
Yeah.
It took him years and years and years of practicing and honing his craft to become the guy that we know.
Yeah, and I'm sure he's still practicing.
Probably gonna keep doing that till he dies, you know, that's clearly his thing.
Yeah.
It's really important to surround yourself with people that inspire you, people that are way smarter than you. There's that expression, oh, I want to be the smartest guy in the room. But actually, no, I want to be the least intelligent person in the room. Then I'm surrounded by people who I can learn from. Education is probably the most important thing. The more I became challenged in my magic, in a way, the more it forced me to find new ways to approach it and reminded me how I know so little about this thing I love so much and that I have so much more to learn. That's what keeps inspiring me. No matter how old I get, how much I learn, I'm never too old to be educated. I want to hopefully have inspired a generation of people to believe that they can do anything and that, you know, no matter what surroundings they grow up in or what adversities they have to fight against, that they don't give up, and that if I'm a testament to anything, it's that if you just keep trying and you're persistent with it and you're determined, you can achieve anything.
Wow, that was so good. That was so good. I think my favorite line from that was, if you keep trying at something and you're persistent at it and you're not disheartened, then you can get there.
I just really appreciate it. I didn't know he came from Bradford. Like, I don't know, it's such an interesting origin story. It's not like he said, he's from Vegas or grew up in a family near Broadway. He was just from Bradford and was inspired by his grandpa.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate that so much.
Likewise.
I do also really appreciate the point that he brought up, that he doesn't want to be the smartest person in the room, especially because you'd think someone with his level of fame, he could just be the most famous person in the room. He'd rather not, because he always thinks it's important. You always have someone to learn from.
Yeah, you're never too old to learn, which is exactly what he said.
So what can we learn from Dynamo's story?
I think we can learn so many different things, but I would say if you're feeling different, if you feel like you're bullied or you feel uncomfortable about different things, have no fear, just keep going and follow your passion.
And I think that ties really in with the big lesson I took away from it, which is that if you are being bullied and such, maybe surround yourself with more people that are your style of people that you can help learn from and grow from, because you're never too old to grow and learn. And I guess keep grinding, keep learning, never stop trying to perfect what you've got, and that just will inevitably help you succeed. Well, I'm really glad we got to learn a little bit more about Dynamo, but how about we learn more about Kate Richardson-Walsh, the Team GB hockey star?
Good idea. Kate joined her first hockey club at the age of 11.
Well, at 14 years old, Kate was representing Great Britain at under 16 level.
Wow. It only took her 9 years from picking up a hockey stick to representing her country at the Olympics.
In 2003, Kate was nominated as captain of the senior hockey team, a role she held until retirement 13 years later.
In the 2012 Olympics, Kate was hit by a stick in the team's opening match and suffered a broken jaw, which was expected to end her journey in the Games. However, after undergoing surgery, she returned to play in their penultimate group game and captained the team to a bronze medal.
Kate is the most capped female for Great Britain with 375 appearances for the national team.
Kate has received 19 medals, made 49 goals during her time as GB and England captain.
And Kate won a gold medal at the 2016 Olympics.
Wow, I think we should watch her film.
I grew up in Heaton Moor in Stockport. I really struggled at primary school. I was really poorly as a young girl, so I was 5 years old and I was off school a lot. I had not much weight on me because I couldn't eat very much, so I was a skinny little thing and I just stuck out. You know, when you stick out at school when you're young, kids can be quite mean, and I got called all sorts of names. My mum played hockey, and so I remember being dragged around the side of a hockey pitch watching my mum. I said, I'm never going to play hockey, Mum. I don't want to be like you. Really stubborn. And then went to secondary school, just my local state school, and hockey was one of the things we did in PE. Almost immediately, as soon as I picked up a stick and started playing, I fell in love with it. I didn't take to it really quickly, but I enjoyed the challenge of it. My PE teacher, Mrs. Kinder, sent me to trials for my local county team. It all kind of happened really quickly for me. And almost before I knew what was happening, I found myself being selected aged 14 for the England under-16 team, playing with girls who I genuinely believed were so far and away better than me. I don't think I really had the opportunity to really think, do I want this? Am I good enough? Until the year after that, when I was dropped from the England under-16s.
Kate mentioned that she was bullied at school, or she didn't feel like she fit in. She was also very ill and poorly as a child, and she explained that she felt quite small. So those were difficult things to overcome as a young person, at that age especially.
And I guess because she was bullied and she had a bit of a rougher childhood and experience in school, it was so vital that she had such a good figure in her life, that teacher that helped nurture that passion that she had found in hockey, that she could just throw herself into and forget about all the other problems she was experiencing.
Because she joined her first hockey club at 11.
Yeah.
Which is a really, really cool thing. And I think for me as well, I remember one of my teachers, my performing arts teacher who I love, she really encouraged me. I remember there was a time where I did a piece of work and then she showed it to the class and was like, wow, this is Marcus' homework, it's really good. And she used me as an example, and I was quite shocked by it, but at the same time, it gave me so much confidence to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm good at this subject. Like, I can actually excel here. And I think you just need one good teacher, even if you have a few bad ones. You know, in maths, they might sound bad, or English, but performing arts, it felt like a very safe place for me because I had that encouragement around me.
I think as a result of wanting to fit in socially, so outside of hockey, I was hanging around with people that I probably shouldn't have been hanging around with. I was drinking, my friends were taking drugs. I remember so clearly, in those days, a letter would be sent out and there was a list of names that were selected for the England under-16s, and my name wasn't on that list. And I remember just that rush of emotion embarrassment, sadness, complete devastation, and just typical teenager, ran upstairs, locked myself in the bathroom. And eventually I came out and my mum sat me down, and the only thing that I really remember from that conversation was her saying to me, "What do you want to do about it, Kate?" Hockey was somewhere that I fitted, that I could be comfortable in my own skin. And so I just set about making better choices, went to a different college where none of my friends went, got my A-levels so I could go to university where it was going to help me play hockey. I had to learn to love the discipline of training and eating well and looking after myself. And then went to John Moores University where I started to become a teacher. And then I got my call up to the England team, senior England team. So I took that year off and went to Sydney Olympics. Coming into that group of senior international players as a teenager was quite daunting. You know, these are women that I'd watched on TV playing the Olympics. Some of them had won an Olympic bronze medal at the '92 Olympic Games. And here was I, just little average Joe Kate, turning up. 2003, we were about to go and play in a Champions Trophy, which is top 6 teams in the world. And our coach at the time, Tricia Heberley, said, OK, we're going to vote for our captain's group. And the coach came back with the vote count and said, OK, actually, I'm going to change this up. And I want one person to be captain. She's got an overwhelming vote from the group, so I'm going to make Kate the captain, which I was like, what? And I was really proud, hugely honoured, but I also felt a bit of a sham. I felt like a bit of an imposter. I was really questioning whether this was the right thing for the group. And as I had done in all of my other aspects of my life up to that point, I decided, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to copy somebody else. Captain that I'd had just before the Sydney Olympics, Sue Chandler. I said, okay, I'm going to be like Sue. So I set about trying to be like her. So I would try and make big speeches and have a really great punchy quote for the huddles, and I absolutely fell flat on my face because, and I know now sitting here, that we follow leaders that are authentic and genuine. And although I think they were following me, I guess there was probably a bit of, you know, she's not quite sure of who she is right now.
I mean, she definitely had some rough decisions to make. The fact that she was hanging out with the wrong types of crowds, she even got kicked off of the team, which was her big passion. Like, clearly after that, she had to think, I need to choose which path I'm gonna take here.
That's the thing, she had to make an active decision and say, I'm going back to purpose, I'm going back to what my passion is, and I'm gonna work hard to achieve what the little girl in me wants to achieve.
Absolutely.
As a group of women, we had been on an epic journey, experienced London 2012 Olympics, being on that podium, touching distance to that gold medal, then experienced rock bottom, mentally, physically, emotionally, as the England side finishing 11th out of 12 at the World Cup in 2014. Me personally having the hardest part in my career ever, having to take time away from the sport, starting to see a therapist, really struggling with my mental health. 2014, the whole squad struggling in many different ways. To put together 2 weeks of exceptional teamwork, 8 games in 14 days, back-to-back wins, every day just picking ourselves up and going at it again, and just standing on that podium in the end, holding that gold medal, which would, you know, for me, for Helen, had spent 17 years trying to get our hands on. Every kind of experience, all the highs, all the lows, was in that moment. When I look down at that medal on that podium, and I think, you know, as a little girl, that absolutely wasn't for me. That was something that happened to other people. It's a nod to that little girl to say, you know, you did it. And all of those difficult moments, the bullying at school, the doubting yourself, having no confidence, you know, you came out of that. And you're standing here now at the top of the world. So, yeah, it meant a lot.
That was quite emotional.
It really was. I really like how we get to hear the story as well behind someone that was able to win a gold medal, and it wasn't just, you know, casually losing in second place. Like, they didn't qualify at some point. Like, she had some big losses that she took personally as a captain. You can tell how great of a leader she was because the fact that she took that loss for the whole team for herself, but then asked herself, what can we do? And then they won the 2016 Olympics.
You know, she spoke about imposter syndrome, and that's interesting because no matter how good you are or how much you've achieved, at every point in life, you could be thinking, am I meant to be here? Am I good at this job? Am I good at this career? Am I good in this position? But you have to overcome self-doubt and those negative self-thinking.
Especially if, like her, you're constantly comparing yourself to others in your field. You're constantly going to think, they've got it, I don't have it. Whereas in reality, everybody has those thoughts, and she was doing great. And the thing about Kate's story is it wasn't just about her. She was leading a team. Like, it's much more difficult to not just focus on, I'm going to win, but you have to have a whole group of people working together to succeed. Have you ever had an experience like that?
Yeah, I used to play netball, you know, back in the day when I was exercising.
So you know how important it is then to work together as a team.
Yeah, and what I love about teamwork is no one is the weak person because the outcome is that you all win. So it's important to have that encouragement. It's important to have that environment where you're all working towards something.
And you all lift each other up in a team.
Yeah.
So she was just that guiding light, but she had to help everyone work together to win the gold.
Exactly. Okay, so what did you learn from Kate's story?
Well, I think the first thing I learned was that you always have to focus on making conscious decisions, not just let your life get carried away with you. Make conscious decisions to change your life for the better and follow your passion.
So good. For me, I would definitely say be authentic, be yourself. Don't compare, don't copy. Be the best Marksy, be the best Evan. Don't be anybody else.
And I think the final thing I'd think about is how can we lift others up for their journeys as well? Not just focusing on how we can succeed, but how can we lift up others to succeed as well?
So good.
What comparisons do you think we can find between Kate and Dynamo?
Well, both of them were bullied.
Oh, both of them
actually.
were bullied relentlessly, yeah.
Very difficult childhoods, but what I love about their stories is that in adulthood, they're looking back at their childhood and they've made themselves proud. They've made that younger girl proud, that younger boy proud. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, the fact that they both really stood out in school and like were the different person, but they used that as a driving factor to become the success stories that we know is just a really inspiring thing.
Yeah, yeah. And also in Kate's story, you know, she went through highs and lows. She succeeded for a bit and then she failed, and then she was in rock bottom where she had bad friends and made bad decisions, but then she came out on top at the very end.
That's so true, Moxie. I feel like everyone has their own mountain to climb, but with persistence and resilience, everyone can realize their true potential.